following podcast features half-biased and controversial sports takes. All predictions are simply predictions, and we truly don't know what will happen. We will try our best to keep you entertained, but no guarantees. We appreciate you taking time out of your day to listen to our show. Much love, Ripper Brands.
Let's go. How we doing, everybody? Ethan Rosen, Elsen Gratz, live from our respective colleges. Me in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Elsen in Tulsa, Wisconsin. He's rocking the Hawaiian shirt. Are you like somehow hinting that it's about 70 degrees and sunny out there in Oklahoma?
It's about 40. Coming back from Wisconsin, that feels like it's 70 degrees. Now, if it was summer, if it was like 70, 80, then I'd be rocking the lay. It feels like it's springtime. It feels like I'm playing on my home field, though, because on the first day of classes, we had snow on the ground. Not a lot, just a dusting, but I got to see it. I know it's real. It's good to be back.
Yeah, it's fun. Back in Milwaukee, first day classes for me, I would imagine. Did you guys have MLK Day off, or did you go full roll? You did. So yesterday, first day classes for you. First day for me, we ended up getting yesterday's classes canceled up here for the cold. So very happy with that. I was able to make the commute back to Milwaukee at 2 o'clock in the afternoon compared to about 7 a.m. to make that happen with my classes, especially after a tough Notre Dame loss. But that's okay. We'll get to that in a little bit. No guests today. You're stuck with Elsen and I. My apologies. No guests today. We're going to be going with a little bit of a shorter episode. Elsen and I are working on a lot of really cool things, so we're going to allocate a little bit of time to that. We got another loaded week of local basketball. We'll reveal our rankings, and we got a little bit of controversy with that. We'll reveal the rankings. We got 3 games in the girls' realm and then 5 games actually for boys basketball in the area. PGA Tour, a couple headlines to get to, and then we'll recap the American Express, get into a little fantasy golf, and then college football national championship. Tough one for my Fighting Irish, but hey, we can't win them all. Future's bright. We'll get to that in a little bit. And then the NFL, Elsen and I will be giving 3 prospects that are outside of the first round that we like going into it, and we'll recap some divisional round, preview the championship weekend, and we'll get on out of here. So Ethan Rose, Elsen Gratz from Milwaukee, from Tulsa, ready to have a little bit of fun. Appreciate you joining us. Let's get to a quick reminder. Just want to remind you to check out our merchandise store by scanning the QR code on your screen now, or by going to ripperbrands.net. Use code podcast for 10% off your next order. Again, that is code podcast for 10% off your order. All right, let's get into some of the fun stuff here. We'll start with local sports. We're going to bypass the special guest segment, and that unfortunately does include our daily draft segment. So that'll be back next week, hopefully. But let's get to a little bit of our rankings reveal. A lot of, good stuff happening with some of the rankings, as you can see them on your screen now. Albany Monticello in the girls' realm remains undefeated. Pick Argyle had that tough loss to Albany Monticello, but they are still in. They lost another game, so they're 14-2. Belleville and Broadhead there as they follow, and the list goes on. And the boys' side, Darlington remains strong. A little bit of movement. Monroe moves down, and there has been a little bit of controversy. I have a couple people have reached out to me and say, "Don't you know Monroe beat New Glarus?" Yes. I know. I was actually there. I witnessed it, but that's not how we do the rankings. And as you can tell, the record difference is drastic. And so that's like saying Northern Illinois beat Notre Dame. So let's put them in the college football playoff. Not quite of a drastic upset like that, but similar. And so I guess understand that a little bit. And so there's our rankings for this upcoming week. Like I said, we got a loaded schedule of games going at it. But Elsen Gratz, how do we feel?
So little question for you.
Yeah.
I know that you ranked the top 25 college football teams just about every week of the season, and you place some emphasis on the who beat who of it. And we don't have to talk about Northern Illinois, Notre Dame. That's been done. How different do you think it is with the structure of college football and doing those rankings versus trying to balance the local side of things here?
Well, it's a really good question, and we'll bring it back to here because it's different in terms of, well, number one, let's look at the sports. I mean, football, you got 12 games a year. Obviously, local is only 9, but these you have multiple games. You're playing teams multiple times, home and away. It's a little bit of a different structure in that regard. You have potentially 1 to 3 games in between each ranking cycle. Where in the NFL or in college football or even just in football in general, it's local. And I think when you look at the level of competition too, like we're looking at local teams taking on local teams. This is in a specific conference. And so with that being said, teams are not always playing each other all the time. And there are local teams that are in the same conference. So we do get some of those matchups, and we do get some of these games where our local teams are just playing expedition or non-conference games against other teams in our area. And so when you look at it from that perspective, yeah, there's an aspect of that, but we have a pretty good sophisticated schedule. We do it by the win percentage. And then if there is a tie, we go into the points per game. And I know you did mention something about the points allowed per game. So we'll try and work on something like that. And it might be worth, because there has been really good traction actually with the rankings. It might be worth looking into furthering that formula and determining our rankings. And maybe one day we'll get to a voting, allowing people to vote for the picks instead of looking at numbers and getting like a lot of votes and looking at the majority there. So there is a little bit of a difference. One, there's a difference in sport from basketball to football, and two, there's a difference in level. I mean, I think it's easier to judge talent and skill level of a team at the college and professional level than it is at high school level. The higher you go up, the less of chances that anybody can win on any given day. That is extremely different from college to the NFL, I would say, but at the same time, it's not. So there's still opportunities. It's difficult to do it. I mean, we're guessing games. If you, if you're consuming our rankings, then you're liking what we do and appreciate it. You know what I mean? Like, we're not going to be perfect. There's going to be upsets. So the worst teams are going to win. But I mean, the Monroe to New Glarus idea specifically. I mean, Monroe's 500. New Glarus is a couple games above 500. I'm not going to put Monroe above New Glarus, and then all the teams in between get kind of shorted in that situation. And so that's kind of where I stand on that.
I love it. One thing though, you got to start rewarding quality losses. I want to see Blackhawk climb in the ranks.
Yeah, I mean, tough strength of schedule is important too. I dropped my pen somewhere. There it is. We're good. We found it.
Here I got you.
Oh, I appreciate it. No, I think that there is definitely an extra dynamic to be added to that, and I think that's something that we can work on. We'll have to get our guy Ryan involved on that. He's kind of the brains behind the operation. He got us started for us, and we'll get him on and trying to further that formula, no doubt about it. But hey, good feedback as always from you and the rest of the people of the area, and we'll continue to make these rankings better. Let's get to previewing a couple of these games also, and we're going to use the rankings to describe. We'll start in the girls round coming up tomorrow night. The best team in the area, Albany Monticello, plays host to the number 6 team, Blackhawk. Who are we thinking in this one?
I'm not going to get too cute with this one. Albany Monticello, easy.
Yeah, I think Blackhawk is it's a storied program. I think that they've won to the state championship, won a couple times. And Albany Monticello, though, they're the new era. They're kind of the new generation and undefeated. I think it's one of those situations that we talk about every week, Elsen, where let's pick with them until they prove us not to. And so far, we've been 100% if you pick with them. So I'll also go Albany Monticello. Number 5, Darlington hosting number 8, New Glarus. What do we think here?
I've mentioned this before, but I'm feeling a little homesick. I think that outside of Monroe, New Glarus is about as Wisconsin as you can get, whereas Darlington is kind of just a place that I drive through to visit my grandma. We're going to go New Glarus.
Yeah, a low blow for New Glarus. I think probably intentional but undeserved stray that you just sent their way. Home of the Redbirds. They actually won our area in football. So, I mean, they got a good athletics down there. I think I'm going to go Darlington here. I think Darlington's a good basketball school. New Glarus is struggling this year. They had a hot start, and they've been struggling as of late. But I'll go Darlington to get the job done in that game against New Glarus. Number 2, Peck Argyle taking on number 10, Judah.
Darlington may just be a place that I've driven through before. I don't think that I've ever seen Judah in real life. We're going to go Peck
Oh,
Argyle.
come on. You've never seen Judah in real life. Is that real?
I probably did, but I can't remember it.
Have you been to Broadhead before?
Of course I have.
Okay, so
Everybody
then
knows Broadhead.
you've been through Judah.
People in Tulsa know Broadhead.
Okay. Is that real?
No.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm gonna go Peck Argyle. They've lost a couple games in the last few weeks, which is uncharacteristic for that team. Obviously, only losing 2 games this season. So I'm going to take them to beat Judah. Judah's been struggling in both the boys and the girls' side. And so I'll take Peck Argyle on that one. I think that one's a little lopsided. I do want to preface, obviously, as you can tell by the little analysis we provide, it's pretty lighthearted. We're not basketball experts by any means. So take these with a grain of salt. Let's get to boys basketball. Monroe, very active in the area. They take on number 7 in Broadhead. Themselves are ranked number 6. How do we think?
Tulsans may not know Broadhead. By the way, I'm pretty sure we're Tulsans. You'd think I'd know that 100%. I don't. But they do know Monroe because I've told all of them Monroe.
There you go. I'm also going to go Monroe with you. I think Monroe gets the job done. This is what's the highway between Broadhead? Is that 81, the I-81 rivalry? Are we going to distinct that? I think we should.
I agree.
It might be 11. Maybe it's both. I think it's 81. 11.
Where does I-90 go? Does I-90 go to Illinois?
I-90 is I think it's more of a big time. Like I-90, is it the I-90 or the I-93 rivalry between the Brewers and Cubs? I think that's like an actual like interstate.
Oh, it's taken. Okay.
I think that's actually real. I think that's a real place. It's not just some local highway that we're trying to take that after. Because we got the I-69 rivalry, Monroe and New Glarus. I believe it's 81 and 11. I'll fact check this for you, Elsen, but I want to say that we're looking at maybe the I-81 rivalry, or is it the I-11 between Monroe and Broadhead? I don't know why I care so much.
We both have to get on this.
Yep.
Monroe to Broadhead Highway. We'll see how good Google is now. I-81.
The I-81 rivalry taking with the number 6 team in the area. The Monroe Cheesemakers taking on the number 7 Broadhead Cardinals. The I-81 rivalry presented by Ripper Brands. Elsen, who did you take?
Was this Monroe Broadhead, right?
Yeah, Monroe Broadhead. You took Monroe,
obviously.
Right? Yeah, okay. I'll go Monroe too. So we're going to take Monroe to get the job done. We're going to install all of these rivalry names for the area, and hopefully it sticks.
Oh, I should retcon myself, though. It's actually not an interstate. I guess it would be WI-81, which is almost cooler.
WI-81? That is almost cooler, yeah. Well, I mean, the I-69, Highway 69, that's not an interstate either, but I just kind of think that's kind of a thing,
True.
Isn't it?
True.
They just do that. We'll install a highway onto that. I mean, it's the definition of Greene County. I mean, that's exactly. You can't get more Greene County than that. All right, Monroe. We got a loaded slate on Monroe. Monday. I'm thinking I said MON and I was thinking Monroe, but I'm gonna go Monday. We got a loaded slate. 3 games on Monday. The Cheesemakers are back in action at home this time, taking on number 10 Evansville. I'm not sure what this one is. This could be maybe like a County Road P. That might be what this one
is. Every
is.
Monroe game gets a name.
Yeah, that's right.
Every
what do we think?
Possible matchup. We're a late season team. We're getting hot. Monroe by 40.
Oh, that's a big time pick there. I think I go Monroe as well. A couple of Monroe people disappointed by the rankings being ranked 6th, even though they're 500. But I think they're going to a little fuel under them. I think they go on a little bit of a run. They get a couple of wins on Friday and Monday. They do have a game Tuesday, but we got a couple games to get to before then. Number 2, Argyle. Number 9, Monticello. Grazie.
So people that are outside of Wisconsin always seem to pronounce Monticello as Monticello because that's what the monument is called. And I think that's pretty messed up. We're going to go Argyle.
Yeah, it's not really a cool thing of them to do. I think Monticello is a bit of a basketball school. I think Monticello being ranked 9. I know we do it by the numbers, but I think it does them it doesn't do them a lot of justice. And so I'm going to go with Monticello or maybe Monticello to most of the viewers to get the job done. And a big-time upset over Argyle. That'd be a big-time play. This is a big-time game. The best team in the area in the boys' side, Darlington, taking on number 3, New Glarus, Elsen.
This one's tough, but I got to side with Darlington. I just think they're better here.
Yeah, I think Darlington's a good basketball team. I think they get the job done. New Glarus, we saw the Cheesemakers beat New Glarus, so who knows? If Monroe can beat New Glarus, but then New Glarus beats Darlington, does that mean Monroe is the best team in the area?
Well, why don't we roll on to the next game? We'll talk it out.
All right, let's do it. Monroe taking on Darlington, number 6 versus number 1 on Monday. Tuesday. I meant Tuesday.
So hear me out. Darlington's coming off a big win over New Glarus. They're flying high. Call us the Washington Commanders. Monroe in the upset.
Oh, there you go. I'm going to go Darlington. This is a couple back-to-back games. Darlington's really, really strong basketball team. They were strong in a couple of years while I was in high school, and they remained that dominance. And so I believe this game is in Darlington, and so I will go with the Redbirds to get the job done over the Cheesemakers. So Cheesemaker, three games in the next, in the span of like 5 days of local games. So that's big time for them. We'll see if they can 3 wins. They might see themselves climbing the ranks and maybe taking over the number 1 spot. We'll see if that's even feasible. I mean, maybe if there's a new formula that's added, we could see them change it a little bit, but we'll see. That's what we got. Local sports coverage, a lot of cool stuff going on there. We're going to get to a quick break. I know it's early on, but we're going to get to a quick break. On the other side, we'll get to PGA Tour, college football, NFL, a lot of really, really cool stuff. What up, y'all? Just want to remind you about the best sunflower seeds in the business. Baseball and softball season is right around the corner, and we want to make sure you are well prepared. Scan the QR code on your screen and check out Smackin' Sunflower Seeds. Get yourself some of the best seeds in the business. Do it now so you don't forget. Are you a fan of Grant Horvat or Ben Kruper? If so, you are in luck. Scan the QR code or head over to primalgolfapparel.com and use code RIPPER for 15% off your next order. Make sure you check them out and get yourself some of their high-quality golf apparel now.
The following podcast features half-biased and controversial sports takes. All predictions are simply predictions, and we truly don't know what will happen. We will try our best to keep you entertained, but no guarantees. We appreciate you taking time out of our day to listen to our show. Much love, Ripper Brands.
All right, welcome back to the Ripper Podcast. Ethan Rosensville, Elsen Gratz with you. Elsen, I see I didn't update that specific text for the warning coming out of the break, but we'll get to that.
We're getting there.
Yeah, I mean, little baby steps. We're just taking baby steps. Ethan Rose, Elsen Gratz, Milwaukee and Tulsa. Elsen wearing the Hawaiian shirt. If you weren't with us at the beginning of the program, Elsen is claiming it's 70 and sunny in Oklahoma, although they had snow on the ground. Can you explain?
85 and just scorching.
Scorching hot. He's getting sunburnt as he was in like November last year.
I'm right by the window. It's just blazing down on me. It's brutal out here.
Even though it's a little dark outside.
Yes.
Okay. All right. There you go. Thanks for joining us. Second half of the program. No guests today, so we are kind of cruising through the episode. We'll get back to that whole thing next week, but let's start with a little bit of a PGA Tour type, stuff. A couple storylines to get to. The Genesis Invitational, which I believe is coming up in a couple weeks, is going to be moved to a different golf course because of the California wildfires. Out of respect, they decided to move those to a different course. It's not 100% sure where that's going to be going. It is normally how that Riviera Country Club in LA. And so they're looking at Torrey Pines potentially, which is where the golf tournament that is happening currently, the Farmers Insurance Open, is going on right now. So we'll see, but that has not been 100% figured out yet. So we'll see what happens with that. Full Swing. I don't know if Elsen's a big consumer of Full Swing, but I love the Netflix series, following a couple golfers and seeing their true personalities. But that'll be coming at the end of February. I believe it's like February 26th or something. But end of February, Full Swing is coming back for season 3. Elsen, have you ever watched?
Is that like Hard Knocks, but for golf?
Yeah, but instead of like teams, it's individual players. It's like quarterback for golf.
Okay. So they just kind of follow them around at all times with a camera, or?
Yeah, pretty much a camera. They probably stick a microphone on them, and through some of the big tournaments, a lot of these guys might have had impressive moments. I did see the list of different players that are covered on the show, and it's quite extensive. I don't know how many episodes are in the season. Normally there's probably like 6 to 8, and they'll cover like 2 guys an episode. But there was a lot of people listed of people who they're covering, and so a lot of interesting names too. So it'll be interesting to see potentially what that might look like coming at the end of February. Super excited to be able to watch that.
I've
Let's
got a follow-up question.
Yeah.
Do the golfers know that they're being recorded?
I do believe. I'm sure it's pretty consensual.
Okay.
Yep. I can't speak for the show or speak for Netflix or any of the golfers, but I would assume that there's a consensual part of that show. American Express recap. Sepp Straka dominated the entire. I just dropped my pen again. Dominated the entire tournament. Thanks, Elsen. The entire tournament ended up winning by a couple strokes. So super impressive performance from Sepp Straka, one of the best names. That's an all-time name on tour. At the American Express, I think he even bogeyed or double bogeyed on the last hole. He just dominated. JT, Justin Thomas, looked back to form. He had a pretty disappointing year last year, but he's back in action. We saw him yesterday in the TGL. Also, have you watched any of the TGL?
I've watched 0 of the TGL. What is it on?
It's on ESPN on Tuesday nights.
Okay.
Yep. I'm giving them a follow on Instagram. Potentially, there's some weird times. I think like President's Day, they have like a triple header, which is gonna be awesome. But no, yeah, TGL is awesome. I love TGL. Tuesday night currently. I mean, there's not a lot going on Tuesday nights, and so being able to watch a little competitive indoor golf, having everybody mic'd up, it's like getting better viewership than like PGA Tour events, which is kind of crazy to think, but. Yeah, super excited to be able to see that, kind of look into. But JT, a part of the Elena Golf Club that won yesterday. And so he's looking good, looking better than ever. And hopefully Farmers Insurance on CBS coming up. Hopefully some of the Sundays and these golf matches will be a little bit more competitive. It's been the Sony Open was sort of competitive, but not a lot of people watched that one. But the Century and then now American Express, a couple of the two of the first 3 big time tournaments have not been super competitive. So hoping and praying for some good golf, some good competitive golf. I think that's really all you can root for on the PGA Tour. It's just competitive, fun watchings around. It's not like you have a favorite team. So that's kind of what we're hoping for. And, maybe we'll get to that point. Let's get to my fantasy golf. As you can tell here, Elsen, we're climbing up the ranks. And so say what you want to say, but we're getting better. And maybe
only like 1,000 people quit this time.
People might be quitting. Yeah. I mean, who knows? But maybe they're starting to retain. But fantasy golf, and I apologize. I'm realizing now I never did update the American Express logo. It is supposed to be the Farmers Insurance Open logo. But last week, a little bit of a better performance than the week prior. But I got to admit, Elsen Gratz. So the Farmers Insurance that's going on currently is a Wednesday through Saturday event, not a Thursday through Sunday. So I never got my picks in. I do that on Wednesdays as I prepare for the podcast, but I wasn't able to make my picks in the Fantasy Golf app. So I unfortunately will not have any points going my way for this week. So next week, you're going to see a whopping 0 under the last week total. But here would be my picks. And for what this is worth, Patrick Cantley, Sahith Theegala, Keegan Bradley, and Ludwig Oberg, which, by the way, Ludwig is currently in first place after day 1. So that's a pretty good pick. And a couple of guys on the bench, Max Gracerman and Max Homa. A couple of the Maxes didn't quite make the cut, but they're on the team. So there you go. That's kind of where we're sitting right now. Hopefully,
you didn't get your picks in. Do you think you're still going up in the ranks?
That'll be interesting to look at. My guess is no, because your hypothesis of people dropping out each and every week is incorrect. But we'll see. We'll see how that goes. So it's disappointing. I'm going to be missing a week. So next week's results aren't going to be super impressive. But and potentially having Ludwig Oberg on my team and potentially winning the tournament, not getting those points is sad. It would have been the first correctly predicted winner. But that's okay. We can live with it. We can. We'll survive. We'll survive. Let's
You're so far ahead. You're resting starters.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, we're not concerned about place. We're into the top 10,000, and we're only growing by like thousands. We're overachieving thousands of people in what we're doing, and so I mean, it's a good start. It's good luck what we're trying to do. College football. Elsen Gratz will get it started with a little bit of our risers and followers, and then we'll get into a little national championship recap. Gratzy, take it away.
We all saw Ohio State win it last Monday. There are a lot of guys I could talk about here. I talked about their big edge rushers, JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer last week. Another impact performance from those two. Could talk about Travion Henderson, who's looked excellent. Looked like 2022 Travion Henderson throughout the season, or Quinshon Judkins, who after kind of a slower regular season had a great postseason. Malachi Starks, great safety. Always feel him on the back end for the Buckeyes. But I got to talk about the quarterback, Will Howard, because out of all of those guys, I do think that he's been the biggest riser. A transfer in from K-State, replacing Kyle McCord. He's added another dimension to his game. And I'm not going to lie and pretend that this is some top 10, even round 1 type of quarterback. But what we've seen from Howard to go from a pretty good college starter, the kind of guy who maybe gets a camp invite, he sits in the pocket, not necessarily the best pocket presence, throws to wide open receivers, kind of accurate, middling arm, whatever. He's taken a big step up this year where he has become one of the smartest players in college football. The guy just doesn't make mistakes. And as he settled in, he got better and better. He set the program season record in completion percentage for Ohio State this year with, I think it was 73%. I mean, some of that is a great offensive line and great receivers who get open for him, but he's also just been extremely accurate. You talk about quarterbacks who are throwers and quarterbacks who are passers, quarterbacks who know how to layer the ball, that know how to get the ball down so they don't get the receiver blown up by a safety, guys who know how to hit the right spot every time and set the receivers up for yards after catch. That is Will Howard. He doesn't have the elite arm strength to be some fantastic NFL starter, but this is a guy to know. This is a guy that I think is going to go, I would say, round 4 at latest, a real chance to go on day 2. And I do look at him as a potential NFL starter down the road. It's been a huge rise for Will Howard.
A lot of good stuff there. I don't really agree with the pick.
You want to talk about Riley Leonard, don't you?
I'd love to talk about Riley Leonard. Absolutely. Good stuff. Good analysis as always. Got to give credit. He won his team the national championship. But, let's get into it. National championship reactions. Tough one for me. Tough one to see the Notre Dame Fighting Irish go down. Not the first half we were looking for. Defense didn't step up like they normally do. Second half was a little bit better. Came back out. I mean, came out of the halftime pretty down. I mean, looks like it was going to be a continuation of the first half, but ended up looking slightly better as the time went on. Defense forced a turnover, got points on the board. A little bit of a different thing. But Elsen, what are your professional analysis takeaways from this game?
I can't really say that the better team won, because I don't think that there is a better team here. I didn't really want either team to win. What I will say is I don't think Notre Dame just gave up. I think that they had a little bit of a rough first half. I know we all saw that long, methodical opening drive, capped it off with a touchdown. Like 3 Riley Leonard keeper third down conversions. I swear to God, the entire offense is just QB draws with Riley Leonard. But kind of getting into that, it felt like they used up all of their good scripted plays on that first drive, and Ohio State just kept the top on the defense, kept making tackles, forced them to have a long drive, and then they just kind of ran out of gas. However, in the second half, came back swinging, let Riley Leonard throw the ball a little bit, started to get the run game going a little bit, a couple of clutch defensive plays, and they made it interesting. Ohio State did pull away. They were just the cleaner team. They're the more talented team. To me, it really felt like the Irish were pressing the whole game, like they knew they were trying to pull off an upset, and it just didn't go their way. But it was a good fight from Notre Dame, as much as I hate to say it.
So I got a couple questions. So you did Will Howard as the riser for you after the national championship game. Being able to see Riley Leonard and seeing kind of the dual threat that he is do you think he's rising at all? Is he a guy to look out for?
So I don't want to say it's tonight because, just got back in school, first 2 days, been busy. But definitely today or tomorrow, I'm going to release my all playoff risers and fallers on Instagram, probably 10 or 12 players. Riley Leonard's going to be in there. He really has shown a lot, just not necessarily a methodical NFL type of passer, but he's a guy who is comfortable when things break down. He's got the arm. I think there's a lot to like.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I was, after the national championship, you're kind of trying to justify, look at maybe into next year, but I think that there's potential that Riley Leonard may come back. I believe he's got
eligibility, isn't he?
I thought he had 2 years. I thought he had 2 years. I could be wrong. Maybe fact check that for us. I think overall, I think I thought he had 2 years coming in, but I'm not sure. But he does seem like the kind of character that get that far and come up just short. He would want to come back. But for Notre Dame, I think like you mentioned, that first drive was extremely long, and it was extremely. I think Riley Leonard took one too many hits on that first drive where he came back out and he was shaking up. You could visibly see pain. I mean, when you have large piles falling on you and 3rd and 1s, 3-4 consecutive times is difficult. But that first drive was hopeful, and a lot of our success this year has come from the defense being super successful and making plays and forcing turnovers and then allowing the offense to get points off those turnovers. Notre Dame led the country in turnovers and then points off of the turnover. And so with that being said, that was something we needed to do. And I said coming into the game, we will not be able to win if this game gets into a shootout. And that's kind of what it did. Instead, we just were not holding up our end of the bargain because the first, I think, 3-4, maybe the entire first half, Ohio State scored on every single one of their drives. And so when you can't, Notre Dame can't keep up with that. We want those long drives, and we weren't able to get the run game going. We were just playing from behind the entire game, which is tough to do and tough to win a game like that, especially against a high-flying, overpowered team like Ohio State. But second half, I think that showed a lot of good will, a lot of good coaching. I think these guys came and that initial drive out of the half. It was a little bit like, here we go, let's continue. But as time kind of progressed, it got a little bit better and made it a little bit more interesting. I think if we make that little chip shot field goal, that might be a little bit more of a different conversation. I think the momentum continues. I think the momentum is stuck on the upright where that ball hit. It didn't come back with us. I think that from that moment on, it was like, now we're going to kind of need a miracle to have something happen.
For me, a big deciding factor, and I like that you talk about forcing turnovers. Notre Dame needed more pass rush. So a pressure is anytime you sack the quarterback, you get a legal hit on him, or basically you hurry him up, make him break the pocket. Notre Dame only finished with 6 of those. And that's not going to be enough against Will Howard, who, if you pressure him, you can get him a little bit uncomfortable. Maybe you get a strip sack. But if you give him clean pockets and let Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Egbuka, who's been a big riser who I didn't mention. Jeremiah Smith is absolutely insane, by the way. He would get drafted like top 10 today if he was eligible. Crazy. But anyway, if you give their guys time to separate and Will Howard clean throwing windows, bad things are going to happen. That's how you give up 30 plus. And that, I think, was kind of a deciding factor in this game.
Yeah. Like you mentioned, Jeremiah Smith's a beast. I mean, that last play, when you got one-on-one with Jeremiah Smith, that's what you're going to do every single time, no matter the situation, clearly. I think I like the point you mentioned. I mean, it was definitely clear that Notre Dame's pass rush was not getting home. And that's disappointing when you're not able to do that. And you continue to see that over and over again. You're rushing 3, rushing 4 guys. And when you sit back in zone, you can overcover some of their really talented wide receivers for so long. And as a result, then they get open and they make a play or there's a flag of some sort. But when you sell out that entire blitz, and we saw it, that last play of the game that solidified it for Ohio State, the sellout blitz, it was 0 coverage across the board, and Jeremiah Smith made you pay. And so when you have that, it's difficult. Now there were opportunities, maybe the rush 5 or 6 compared to 8 or whatever we did in that situation. But no, I think the future's bright. When you look at it in terms of what does next year look like, mentioned Riley Leonard potentially coming back. I'm not sure if you found anything.
He is a 4th-year senior. He's gone.
He is. Okay. So looking at that, I mean, the last, I don't know, handful of 3-4 years, we've brought in a transfer quarterback and has played, a year and then left. So looking into that, potentially seeing who we might bring in kind of late in the game now with the transfer portal, but seeing who we might bring in. A lot of good players still remain in the program. Jeremiah Love's still in town. One of the best running backs in the country. And so we'll see. Future's bright. When you have Marcus Freeman at the helm, I think this was a year that Marcus Freeman gained a lot of respect, including of Notre Dame fans. I've always been a Marcus Freeman fan, not to toot my own horn, but I've always respected him. I thought he was a good coach. And I think this year he gained a lot of respect for the Notre Dame faithful and just the entire country as a whole, just seeing that. And I think it was big for the Notre Dame brand, back, when they were in their glory years. Notre Dame was kind of that top-notch program, and I think that they're kind of getting back to that point. And I think there's potential for a potential dynasty to be growing under the Marcus Freeman era. We'll see.
So that we all saw that go ball with one-on-one coverage against Jeremiah Smith. I actually think that was kind of a nice way for them to put the game on ice versus just, eking it out on the ground. Go out with a bang, I think. Obviously, Smith played a huge role in this game, but was it like Jaden Greathouse, a wide receiver that I've never heard of? Is that his name?
Yep.
Added to the 2026 draft board. He was doing his best Jeremiah Smith impression.
Yeah, Notre Dame's got a couple guys that our number one guy, Jordan Faison, he can make big-time plays, but I don't really see him as a wide receiver one. Definitely not to Jeremiah Smith's caliber. But there's a couple guys, Greathouse and Faison, Chris Mitchell, a couple of those guys that they're just there. It kind of reminds me of the Packers wide receiver core. It's just a handful of guys. There's not one guy they're really trying to target. And in certain aspects, that's good. I think, obviously, the Packers wide receiver room is a little bit more talented than Notre Dame's, given that they're playing at the professional level. But it also, I think, it poses a different type of threat. You have a good tight end, Mitchell Evans, who I think was underutilized this year. He's, in my opinion, a top 5. Might even argue a top 3 or 4 tight end in the country. You don't think? Come on.
He's fringe top 10. He'll get drafted.
Okay. All right.
There are a lot of good tight ends out there.
Yeah, I would agree. But if you're getting him at tight end 8, tight end 9, that's a steal in my opinion. I think he was underutilized. I think he's a little underrated of a player. I think Notre Dame's a little bit underrated of tight end U. Kind of thought the same thing with Michael Mayer coming out. I believe he went in the first round. Did Michael Mayer go in the first round?
I think he went second.
He had a lot of hype.
And he's a good player for the Raiders. He's just behind Brock Bowers. Now he's just kind of their blocking specialist. Yeah,
it kind of sucks for him. I just think Notre Dame does not get the respect of the tight end position that they deserve, and a lot of good tight ends that are still there. So, yeah, future's bright. Looking forward to next season. Al Golden just today, I believe, is now the Bengals defensive coordinator, who was Notre Dame's defensive coordinator. And so we'll see where that goes, who gets hired in that situation. But a lot of excitement going into next year for the Irish. There you go. Any last thoughts, Elsen?
You said that Notre Dame's defensive coordinator got hired out for the Bengals job?
Yep.
Oh, that's interesting. I actually didn't hear about that.
Al Golden, yep.
That's like there are a lot of good defensive minds available right now. Some head coaches that got fired throughout the season to go to Notre Dame for that job. Yeah, that says a lot about him, I think.
Yeah, he did. I mean, Notre Dame had one of the best defenses in the country, no doubt about it. I think
Xavier Watts is a Cincinnati Bengal.
Potentially. I mean, I hope he's a Cowboy, but potentially. So how about we do this? Let's keep it in the NFL college realm and let's do our top NFL prospects. Elsen and I came up with a list. Elsen obviously being the NFL draft expert he is. I'll try to compare his knowledge. But we're going to bring up, I think, 3 names as a plan of our favorite NFL draft prospects that are projected outside of the first round. So not like big name guys, under the radar kind of guys. I think this is fun. We're kind of at a stage where it might be just a little too early for a mock draft, but you're seeing some storylines, some players start to jump in the drafts, and some players develop and draft stocks rise and fall. So, Elsen Gratz, why don't you start us off with number 1? Pick up just one of your plays. We'll go back and forth.
So I got to shuffle my list a little bit here because I thought this was a daily draft, and I was prepared to talk about like the guys that I thought people would like to hear about for sure. But now I get to go to my guys a little bit. So I want to start with Princely Umanmielen, an edge rusher from Ole Miss. I would say he's somewhere in the early second round range right now. I want to say that he's a 5th-year senior, a little bit of an undersized player, but he is exactly what you want out of the modern pass rushing outside linebacker type. Just super athletic, super bendy, very crafty as a pass rusher as well. He's not going to defend the run much for you, but if you need a guy who can just win a one-on-one and get after the quarterback and impact those 3rd and 12s, I think that's Princely Umanmielen from Ole Miss.
Yeah, interesting. There you go. I'm going to go – my guys are not like hidden gems like yours might be, but I'm going to go with a guy whose name is Danny Stutzman. I don't believe he's first-round projected.
No, he's not. That's actually a deeper cut than Umanmielen is.
Really? I love Danny Stutzman. I think he's a beast. He fits the linebacker stereotype and the linebacker mold perfectly. He's hard-headed. He's not afraid to hit. He gets in there and makes plays. And Danny Stutzman out of Oklahoma, he stayed around in Oklahoma. He's loyal. He's a guy that probably gives Elsen fits all the time and hoping that wishing he would decided Tulsa over the Sooners. But I think Danny Stutzman's a beast. He's a guy, I think I could see him. I mean, my thought is maybe second or third round. I'm not sure where you think he'll go, but I love Danny Stutzman. I think he's a good value pick.
I don't really even have anything to add on to that because that's all you got to know about Danny Stutzman is that he's the hard hat type of linebacker. He's going to thump. He's going to play the run. And I think that third round is right about where you'd want to pick him. Not the most athletic guy, but this isn't a very strong linebacker class. You need a guy to play day one. I love that pick.
Yeah, I love it. What do you got number 2?
So I think next I'll talk about Trey Harris, also from Ole Miss. And this is a guy that a lot of people are pretty divided on because a lot of people look at the numbers and he is very productive, scores touchdowns, makes a ton of catches. Jackson Dart's trust target, really. And this is a very vertical receiver who's going to go up and he's going to win the jump ball. And he's an athlete too. So where's the catch? He can't run routes. DK Metcalf coming out of Ole Miss was very similar. Metcalf maybe a little bit more of an insane athlete. Metcalf could kind of run routes. I don't think that Trey Harris has ever made a box cut in his life. Every redirection is like 3 to 4 steps. But man, if that contested catch ability where you just throw it up to him and he catches it almost no matter what, if that translates to the NFL, this is a potential starting Pro Bowl type of wide receiver we've got on our hands. And what really makes me like Trey Harris is that he wants it. He's not just out-athleting guys and kind of going up there and being really talented. Every single catch, he battles for it. He's stuck with Ole Miss. Great prospect.
Love it. I'm going to go with a guy from my Notre Dame Fighting Irish, and you mentioned him earlier, Xavier Watts. I love Xavier Watts. He is an All-American player. He is a wide receiver converted to DB. He is a ball hawk. He is all over the field. He has range. He's long. He's fast. He's physical. He's got all the attributes. I'm not sure where he's projected. You said that he should go to the Bengals now that Notre Dame's D coordinator's there, but I'd say probably – outside of maybe Jack Kaiser or Riley Mills, he's probably the highest projected Notre Dame guy. Maybe
like overall.
Overall,
actually, like thinking about the offense, yeah, I think he probably is second or third round for Xavier Watts.
Yeah, I love him. He's a beast of a player, and I think any team's lucky to have him.
You hit the nail on the head again with Xavier Watts. He just flies around, a ball hawk. I mean, even in the championship game, was he out of position a little bit at times? Sure, but he was flying around the field. And even though he's a playmaking type of safety who will fire down and trigger on a post route and undercut it and pick that off, he fires down into the box and plays the run as well. Not this huge, strong safety who's going to hit you and knock you off your feet, but you can trust him to tackle guys.
Yeah. Last guy for you, Elsen.
So I have Omarion Hampton from North Carolina written down because for some reason nobody talks about Omarion Hampton. This is an insane running back class. It looked insane over summer, and it's gotten even more insane since then. But I think instead I'm actually going to talk about Caleb Johnson from Iowa, who has been probably the biggest riser at the running back position, kind of came out of nowhere. He's the throwback, but in the best way, just kind of like what we wanted Ollie Gordon to be coming into this year. He's a freight train runner. If you give him a lane, he's going to gather speed. He's going to run through safeties, but he can break down, stop on a dime, and make guys miss as well. It's really, really hard not to like Caleb Johnson. Maybe you want to teach him the route tree at the NFL level so he can stay on the field on third downs, but he's got the frame to be a good pass protector. Just an all-around great running back prospect. No complaints. He doesn't fumble either.
I'm gonna go with the running back, and he's a name that a lot of people do know because of his college performance. I'm gonna go Cam Scatterbo. I think he is. We've talked about him here in the program. He's a guy that might not be a full NFL running back coming out of the draft. He's a third down back, but his college numbers are undeniable. I think that he's still underrated for wherever he's projected to go. I've heard like 6th, 7th round for him.
Not anymore. He's shooting up boards.
I think he's shooting up boards, which is perfect. I think it's how it should be. I think Cam Scatterbo is a beast. I think he's still a good player. Now, his arrogance, which is some people say confidence, it's a little much for me. I wouldn't raise a red flag about that, but it's something to keep on my radar. But I like Cam Scatterbo. I think he's a player who's shooting up boards.
Cam Scatterbo is so much fun because he just plays running back like an absolute psycho. He just doesn't go down. Like, you've got your speed to power running backs who will go up to a linebacker and they'll run through him. Scadaboo will do that, but he'll just have like 4 defenders hanging off of him, and he's dragging all of them forward for the first down. Like you mentioned, he catches passes. There is so much to like with Scadaboo. And I love the confidence personally. I think you need that as a running back in the NFL. You need to think you're better than the guy that you're running into.
I think that's fair. I think it's fair. Any honorable mentions on your list?
I had Harold Fannin Jr. written down. I've talked about him before. Tight end out of Bowling Green. Man, the more I've seen from Fannin, I just keep liking him more and more. I don't throw comps like this around very often, but I loved Brock Bowers last year. I had a top 5 grade on him. I think I mentioned at one point he was the best player that I've ever seen out of college. I'm not saying Fannin is going to be Bowers. I think there's only one Brock Bowers, but the way they play, it's similar. He's not a wide receiver because Bowers is truly a tight end. You get the tight end skill set where he wins tough catches. He can block a little bit, but he's not that kind of plodding inline tight end who's just out there to block. Maybe he catches a pass and falls forward for a couple of yards. You get the best of both worlds with Fannin. He's going to block really hard, but he's also a fantastic route runner. You can throw him a screen pass because he's that athletic. It's a low level of competition, but I can't help but love him. And he is climbing draft boards as well. He's going to be at the Senior Bowl and the Shrine Bowl, so he knows he's going to be a riser. I think he's a first-round pick.
Really?
I think so. He's a 235-pound tight end from Bowling Green, but man, he was literally their entire offense. He was like the only way that they would move the football. He's like the Ashton Genty of tight ends.
Interesting. There you go. I'm going to throw out Jack Nelson's name, left tackle for the Wisconsin Badgers. I think he's a guy from Stoughton. He's going to be a middle round, probably a day 3 guy. He's a beast. I think that he's one of the better he's one of the better value picks in the draft at that position, and I like what he does. A guy who might be first round. I'm not 100% up to date, but he's right on the bubble for sure. Is Isaiah Bond. I'd imagine if anything, he might have went backwards a little bit because he's been battling injury. But wide receiver for Texas, I think I loved him at Alabama, and when he was there, he was dominant. He played really, really well. And since he's went to Texas, obviously he's battled a couple injuries this year, especially conference championship playoff time. But I think he's one of the better wide receivers in the class, and especially considering you might be able to sneak him in that second round, I think he's a huge pick.
I definitely don't think he's going first, although this is a very weak overall wide receiver class. Number 1 is pretty clearly Teteroa McMillan, and after that it gets a little bit dicier, so maybe his stock gets risen up. But I think you might be able to get him in round 3. Because the thing with Isaiah Bond is he is a fantastic athlete. He's got some Tank Dell to him, hopefully without the injuries, where he can just stop and start on a dime. And actually, now that I say Tank Dell, the injury thing gets a little bit more concerning. Kind of maybe a early player comp there. His agility is fantastic. He can do a ton with the ball in his hands. He just glides over top of safeties. But it just feels like something is missing. He doesn't really win tough catches, not consistently.
What do you mean? He got in the Iron Bowl. Iron Bowl, he made the tough catch.
It's the consistency, though, because sometimes Isaiah Bond disappears, and that's so tough to count on in the NFL. But third round, that could be a really, really nice player because he's got Pro Bowl upside. Tough, and like Isaiah Bond. Come on, his name is Bond. Hard guy not to root for.
Yeah, no kidding. I gotta ask. Out of the last couple of years that you've been really heavily following the NFL draft and making predictions, who's one guy that you're most proud of hitting on?
I have to think about that. Offhand, I would say Chop Robinson out of Penn State, because he had 8 sacks in his Penn State career, and everybody looked at that and said, why are we looking at this guy in the first round? He's a third-round prospect. And I watched the tape and said, this is a guy who is an insane athlete. We know this, but he converts speed into power. He can knock tackles back, and he's developing an inside move. Might not defend the run in year 1, but once he starts to fill out, he can play 3 downs, and he's up there in Defensive Rookie of the Year voting right now. He's been a big sack getter for the Dolphins.
Love it, love it, love it. All right, good stuff as always, Elsen. Let's recap a couple of divisional rounds and keep on going. How about those Kansas City Chiefs? Just always getting them calls like they need them. They beat the Texans 23-14. What are your thoughts on this one, Elsen?
The Mahomes stuff needs to stop. It's completely insane. It's hurting the product. The NFL needs to change the way that it officiates. I'm all for protecting quarterbacks. But when you protect them as much as Mahomes is protected, because the refs really should have been protecting those two Texans players from themselves. They hit each other harder than they hit Mahomes on that hit.
No doubt.
I think it starts to work the other way because we saw the Aziz Al-Shaair hit on Trevor Lawrence. If you're going to get penalized if you touch a quarterback or if you blow up a quarterback, why wouldn't you get your money's worth? I think it's good for everybody if we start to take a reasonable angle. Like if you flop, that should be a 15-yard penalty. If you go down late, that should be a clean hit. I think that there's a healthy middle ground here, and I am sick of seeing Patrick Mahomes get the calls. That being said, I don't think it's why the Texans lost.
Yeah, I agree. I also think, on that topic, I think Patrick Mahomes, just watching him play and watching some of those specific calls and how that kind of transpired. Mahomes plays to get calls. I mean,
he does.
It's his playing style. And to me, I like the happy balance of where if you are going to the style of where, how do I want to say this? If we're gonna, to me, like I like the happy balance, like you said. But if there is a point where a player is playing like that and putting themselves in a position to try and get a call, to me, you're doing that to yourself, and that should not be called. There should be some sort of judgment in that situation. And I'm not a reffing expert, and I'm not 100% sure how that works. But if Mahomes is gonna literally like just stand on the edge of the sideline and then wait to just get just popped, and then want a flag from that. Like to me, like as a referee, I'm like, nope, that was fake. You know what I mean? If there's a legit hit, like the Al-Shaair hit on Lawrence, that's a legit hit.
Absolutely.
To me, a hit like that is suspendable. I know they did suspend him, but I honestly still think that was potentially not enough. But something like that's a little different. But when you have a playing style and you have mannerisms and acts like Mahomes does, there should be a judgment piece in there that says no, that is embellishment, and you're trying to get the referee to get that call. I don't like it. I think there's a better way of handling it, like you mentioned.
So then you did see that play where Mahomes did his signature move, which is to slow down by the sidelines. It gets pushed out of bounds while he's still in bounds,
and then
he
flies
himself on the ground. That should be a 15-yard penalty. That should be going the other way. And the thing is, there's actually precedent for that. In one of my favorite NFL clips of all time, and this is a game from like the 70s or 80s, the punter kicks the ball away. It kind of looks like he gets hit. He spins himself to the ground, and then there's a flag down, and the announcers are wondering, is he going to get a call? Are they going to get another chance at this? Are they going to get a free first down? And the call is a personal foul on the punter. And I quote, this came out of the referee's mouth, for trying to draw a foul. And then a second later, you hear, yeah, you. We need to bring that back to the NFL.
Yeah, for sure. I think all sports, to be honest, there should be some sort of rule for that, because you think about the NBA, and there might be a rule or something in the NBA.
I hate it, man. They don't enforce that rule. It makes the NBA unwatchable.
It's why people don't like it. They're all fake. And we don't like fake sports. We want guys like Patrick Mahomes should be playing and executing their talent. Like that, I mean, Patrick Mahomes is one of probably the most gifted quarterback in the league right now. Fans want to see him show that talent. We don't want to see him take the easy way out and draw a 15-yard penalty. Maybe that's part of his talent. I don't know. But I think that, yeah, exactly. I just think that's what people want to see. Every sport should have some sort of embellishment rule. I know a couple do. But every sport, and specifically in this conversation, football, should have some sort of embellishment rule to be able to eliminate that factor, or even if it's a referee judgment. I know that opens the hand for a lot of controversy, but I think that that's potentially a good way to try and do that, because, I mean, it's just all live in the moment. And when you see Patrick Mahomes play like that, it's to me, if I was a referee, it'd make me want to throw the flag less.
At the very least, they need to be able to go to New York or wherever they have the review ready, and they need to be able to pick up that flag. And I think they said on that roughing the passer call, they actually could have, within the rules, picked up the flag, but there was like something that stopped him from doing it. Like maybe technically his face mask got tapped. And since there was helmet to helmet on that, even if it was a bad discretion call, they couldn't pick up the flag. Screw that rule. That's not roughing the passer. Get it right next time.
Absolutely. Hey, a big time game in the NFC. Commanders 45 over the Lions 31. Lions losing all their guys. Both coordinators are gone. A little bit of a disappointing end of their season. A lot of high expectations, but Jaden Daniels, man, he's looking like that kind of guy.
I feel like you can kind of make fair excuses for the Lions here, a team that, maybe everybody outside of the NFC North was rooting for. They just kind of ran out of guys on defense. The injuries finally caught up to them against a really bad offense. They lost one of their starting cornerbacks, Amik Robertson, who I think was 4th on their depth chart to open the season. They were just down too many guys, and a hungry Commanders team took advantage. Emphasis on hungry, because this Commanders team has been absolutely fantastic. The defense is stepping up. They got after Jared Goff. They made Jared Goff uncomfortable, and Jared Goff played a not very good game. He had a bad overthrow to, I think it was Amon-Ra St. Brown. Was that the one that resulted in the pick 6? Because he threw a pick, and then I think he also threw 2 picks and he had a fumble. Jared Goff looked like the Jared Goff that the Rams traded away, not the Goff that the Lions have had, and that's really a statement by the Commanders defense to force that bad performance out of them.
Yeah, a couple things from this game. I asked you what your favorite NFL draft pick, or someone you hit on, what you're most proud of. One of my takes overall that I was proud of is, and I wasn't overly correct, but I did predict that I said that the Commanders are going to win the NFC East. I predicted that, and I said Jaden Daniels is probably going to end up as the best quarterback out of this year's draft. And while they didn't win the NFC East, they're in the NFC Championship game with the chance to win the NFC. And so I think that's one of the things. I loved the Dan Quinn hire. I think obviously being the defense coordinator of Dallas, I got to see what kind of coach he was, and obviously very experienced being the former Atlanta Falcons head coach. But that hire, and then being able to bring in Cliff Kingsbury as the offensive coordinator, love that. And then Jane Daniels being the playmaker that he is, and then being able to see some of the playmakers. I mean, that front 7 for the Commanders is dominant. They added Marshawn Lattimore. You got Terry McLaurin, a veteran presence with Zach Ertz, getting better offensive line. It's a good team. It's an underrated team. And I love seeing the Jane Daniels play that we're seeing. He's kind of the next coming of Lamar Jackson, that dual threat kind of guy. If there was a comp, I would say Lamar Jackson's his comp right now. And I love it. Lamar Jackson's got potential of winning his 3rd MVP, I believe it is. That playing style is not matched really by anybody other than Lamar right now. And being able to see Jaden Daniels potentially probably going to win Rookie of the Year offensively, but going to potentially kind of take that over and pressure Lamar for that dual threat kind of top guy.
I'm going to put my hands up and say that I was dead wrong about the Washington Commanders, and I was wrong about Jaden Daniels. I had a top 10 grade on him, but that wasn't high enough. He's been so much better than the quarterback 3 in this class like I was expecting. I will say, though, it's in the scouting report that I wrote on him. My high comp was Lamar Jackson. And That's not just because he's actually stated that he models his game around Lamar. It's normally when you see players say, I model my game around this elite player, it's like, okay, maybe you have one thing in common. Jaden Daniels actually plays like Lamar. And I don't say this very often. I didn't say this about CJ Stroud last year. I'm wondering if Jaden Daniels is elite after year 1. I'm wondering if he's the 5th best quarterback in the NFL. This has been the best rookie quarterback season in the history of football. That's what we're seeing.
To me, okay, what is Lamar in his 4th or 5th year?
5th or 6th, maybe. I think it's 2020 class, so maybe 5th.
Okay, so it's 5th year Lamar Jackson, 2 MVPs in. To me, Jaden Daniels is comparable, at the current Lamar Jackson to the current Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels is Lamar Jackson with a better arm, and I think we've seen Lamar's arm and his accuracy develop throughout his career. I think he that's growing, and I think that's an aspect that AP voters cannot deny in terms of voting for him for MVP. But I think Jaden Daniels coming out is double the player Lamar Jackson was, and he's comparable to what Lamar Jackson is now. And just to see that, he's a freshman. CJ Stroud had a heck of a year last year, had that sophomore slump. Hopefully Jaden Daniels doesn't get that. Well, hopefully he does for my Cowboys next year, but I also think for the sake of him, that'll be interesting to watch as well to see how he comes back next year. Not saying that their season's over because they still got a chance for a Super Bowl.
They're going to be battling in that game, I think. I mean, they beat the Eagles this year. It's already happened. One thing that makes me nervous, you mentioned how their offensive line has been way better than we expected, certainly way better than I expected. They lost Sam Cosmi, who's an excellent guard, by far the best player on their line. I don't even know who's next in line to replace him. That is going to be big because the Commanders like to run the ball. They like to run it between the tackles, and Philly is a very, very talented team in the trenches. It's going to be tough for them to punch above their weight class, but they've done it before, and I don't see why they couldn't do it again.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Eagles, Rams, this was a game snow rolled in and got heavier as the game went on, but the Eagles hold up the Rams. The last second Matthew Stafford classic comeback drive falls just short. Philly gets the job done. They're going to the championship game.
I'm not sure how much of a take this is, but I think this is maybe an unpopular opinion. Jalen Hurts is kind of a poser. He's like an average quarterback. And Saquon Barkley is just an absolute killer. 2 huge runs in this game. I think Saquon is the most valuable player on the Eagles. The Eagles would not be what they are if they didn't have a great offensive line, if they didn't have great wide receivers, but in particular, if they didn't have Saquon Barkley. He is the reason that they won this game.
I doubled down on that statement right there. I think Jalen Hurts, he'd be lucky, in my opinion, to be above halfway. That he'd be lucky to be in the top half of starting quarterbacks in the NFL right now, in my opinion.
There are a lot of good QBs in the NFL.
There are, and he is a poser, and he can make the big play when you need it. He can make a good play, and he does have that running ability that I think is grown, but it's underrated and whatever. But I think he's on the overrated side. But Saquon Barkley, man, he is something else. I mean, that man, when you think about the Barry Sanders and the Emmitt Smith and the Ed Dickerson, right? And some of those guys, I mean, those are some of the best running backs in the league. I'm sure I'm missing some as well that we've seen in the history of the NFL. Saquon Barkley is going to be in that category by the end of his career. Now that he's on an Eagles team that has a Hall of Fame caliber offensive line, a quarterback that can throw, and just amazing offense with a good defense. It's been a travesty to watch him play on the Giants and seeing that he's been that successful so far. But seeing him on the Eagles, man, he's going to be in that elite all-time category of like GOAT running back status.
What makes him so special? Well, for one, he gets by a linebacker and he's gone. It's a touchdown. There are maybe like 3 or 4 running backs in the NFL where that's the case, where they break the second level and you just know that it's a score, regardless of where you are on the field. However, with the Giants, one of his biggest weaknesses besides the injuries and one of his biggest weaknesses dating back to Penn State has been his vision, not always picking the right hole. Being in Philly helps when you have the best run blocking offensive line, or maybe second best behind Detroit in the NFL. That helps. But his ability to make guys miss in the backfield and to choose the right lane and to get the layups as well as the home runs, he's taken a big step up. And we are going to be talking about him in that conversation. The fact that we get to watch Barkley and Derrick Henry on the same Sunday is absolutely insane.
It is crazy, and it'd be awesome to be able to see that in the Super Bowl. That'd be awesome. Maybe one day. I mean, I would never actually want the Eagles to make it to the Super Bowl. Nothing in me would ever want that, but that would be an all-time running back matchup in the Super Bowl to be able to watch. Saquon's got the combination of speed and strength, and that's like elite speed and elite strength, and that's something that not a lot of guys do. And I think, and vision. I mean, his vision's unmatched. He might have the best vision of all time, and yeah, he's a beast, no doubt about it.
That's a little strong, but he's that guy.
You don't think he's got the best vision in the league?
I don't think he's even close. I think he's bottom half in terms of vision.
Okay. Well, it
doesn't matter when he's in Philadelphia. It doesn't even matter. He's so good at the second level. He can just run away from guys. He can jump over dudes backwards. Yeah. He's that good.
He's got elite athleticism. Maybe we can
absolutely
agree. All right, there you go. Bills 27, Ravens 25. Mark Andrews drops the game tie and 2-point conversion. Rumor has it he has not talked to media since. He has, didn't show up to his post game, didn't show up during the week during practice and during the bag packing day or whatever for the Ravens. Mark Andrews drops it. Ravens are done for the year. What do you make of this game?
I understand being really mad at Mark Andrews after this one. To play devil's advocate, you wouldn't be in this situation if you didn't have Mark Andrews. He's been a big contributor this year, coming back from injury. He's been a big contributor throughout his entire tenure with the Ravens. This was a really bad game. He had multiple drops, dropped the game-tying two-point conversion, had a fumble where he made a big catch on what would have, I think, been either a go-ahead or game-tying drive for the Ravens, and I think it was the fourth quarter of this game. It was a brutal game. That being said, Lamar had a chance to have a good, strong half and get Baltimore out to an early lead, and he couldn't do that. I don't think that you put this loss on any one player. It was kind of a combination of factors. And I think that the slick conditions really doomed the Ravens in this game because Lamar Jackson is a fantastic rushing threat trying to make magic happen in the pocket. He just dropped the football. It didn't get swatted away from him. It wasn't a strip sack. He just lost it. Same thing happened with Andrews on that catch where he was running around at midfield trying to make a man miss in open space, and he kind of just lost the football. On that two-point conversion, he started to slip. He was going to go for the body catch, and he drops the body catch. How often do NFL receivers drop body catches where the issue isn't turning upfield too fast? That's just not a play that happens in the NFL. That must have been an extremely slick football, and it just sucks if you're the Ravens. It sucked that a team had to lose here. We talked about that going in. This could be a Super Bowl type of preview. And I think we saw a really good game with a good comeback fight from the Ravens, even if they couldn't finish it.
Yeah, it seems like this is like the AFC picture, right? I mean, it's tier one is the Chiefs, they're the team to beat, and then it's the Bills and Ravens, probably the next two teams that are have any opportunity of knocking those guys down. And one of those teams had to go through the other one to get to the Chiefs, and so that's difficult. I think that's tough to see. I mean, both of these teams I think 99% of the country would agree that we'd rather see the Bills and Ravens, one of those two teams in the Super Bowl over the Chiefs. So that if we saw a Bills-Ravens AFC championship game, that might be a little bit more intriguing than a Bills-Chiefs. I mean, we've seen that so many times, but tough one there. And for the Bills, it's a question mark for me is whether or not the Bills earned it or they had it handed to them with the missed two-point conversion. It would have been interesting because I think maybe 30 seconds or so left on the clock after that, seeing what Josh Allen could have done and drive down. Obviously not the most ideal kicking conditions in that situation, but would have been interesting to see what that would have looked like if this was a 27-27 game going to the last couple seconds of that one and potentially into overtime. But tough one for the Ravens. I think they're a team that'll get back to it. I think it's starting to kind of get to that point, though, for Lamar, where those playoff wins really kind of started. They got to start accumulating for him to kind of get, level up in a way, because he's got the MVPs, he's got the personal achievements, but in terms of team achievements, I think that's what people remember you by. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, I know he's one of the greatest of all time, but he's got 4 MVPs, but only 1 Super Bowl. That's what he's going to be remembered by.
And that's a very real thing because the version of Lamar that we've seen in the playoffs throughout his entire career has not been regular season Lamar. First half Lamar in this game was not a good quarterback. But what gives me hope is he pulled it together in the second half. He rallied and he looked like regular season Lamar. He got the Ravens back into that one. And if Andrews catches that, he dug himself out of the hole that he dug in the first half. So we got to see it for a full game next year in the playoffs because I do think that they're going to be back. But it's at least progress considering how bad he's been in the past. He's getting there.
They looked really good in the wild card round against the Steelers. I mean, that looked like a team that can make a run. They looked like a different Ravens team in the playoffs.
The reason that I had some pause going into this game against the Bills and why I picked the Bills to win, I know that you did too, is because I think that game against the Steelers, even though it was a divisional game against a good defense, I think it was just kind of easy for them. They were able to run the ball really hard at them because they knew that the Steelers offense wasn't going to do anything. I'm not saying that the Steelers weren't going to have a chance, but I don't think that the Ravens were going in with the same level of concern, and they didn't play uptight the same way that they did against the Bills because they knew the Bills were going to give them a run for their money.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm going to continue to say this. I think this is the Josh Allen's year. I think it's MVP and Super Bowl for him. That's what I'm hoping for. Let's get to a previewing a couple of those games, including Josh Allen's game in the AFC Championship taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. What do we think? Make a prediction.
MVP and Super Bowl, baby. I don't even think that this game is, well, okay, this is so stupid to say. I think the Bills are clearly better than the Chiefs. I don't really think it's close. The refs are going to make it close, but I think that the Bills have an extra gear that they didn't show against the Ravens because they didn't need to. I think that if Lamar does tie it up, if Mark Andrews does make that catch, the Bills find a way to make a game-winning field goal. I've got Bills 28-21.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one. I'm going to go 27-24 Bills. I think, like I mentioned, I think this is Josh Allen's year in all assets. The thing that sets the Chiefs apart, in my opinion, is their ability to win the tough game. They have it all season long. They haven't played their best football, but they find a way to win those close games. They clutch up. Mahomes makes a play. Someone makes a play. They just find a way, and that's something that comes pivotal in the playoff time. Either of these two teams, honestly, are very deserving of being to the Super Bowl. And I love that we've kind of developed this little rivalry here and seeing these two teams match up almost every year in the playoffs. I mean, it's great. It's good for the sport. And I think it's a big-time game. I look forward to watching it. Eagles, Commanders, NFC East. I got to say about this. The Packers finished third in the NFC North, supposedly the best division in football. Well, two NFC East teams in the NFC Championship game. How about that? You know who else finished third? And I would say the ball don't lie. Ball don't lie. Two NFC East teams in the championship game.
Was that the Giants or the Cowboys who were third in that division?
The Dallas Cowboys. So you finished in the same. You finished in the same spot as the Dallas Cowboys, the Packers, and the Cowboys, and we are in a much more difficult division. And so I want you to remember that the NFC East is more difficult than the NFC North. And I want you to remember that whole situation. Just remember this moment and remember that when you have something to say about my Cowboys. Now make your pick.
This is a tough game. I think it's going to be closer than Vegas thinks. I think the spread on this is like Eagles -6. Jaden Daniels could just go stone cold killer mode and keep the Commanders in it almost no matter what. That being said, I think that the Eagles are just too talented. Like I mentioned before, I think they're going to own the trenches. Kind of a fun deciding factor I see here is Saquon Barkley versus Bobby Wagner. Probably the best missed tackle creator in the NFL versus the best tackler in the NFL. Bobby Wagner deserved that Pro Bowl nod, by the way. He's 40 years old, but he still tackles everything that moves. Ultimately, this is Jalen Hurts' game to lose. I think the Eagles do enough. 28-27.
Yeah, I'm not going to pick the Eagles. Usually in this situation, I'm not going to pick them. I'm actually confident. Not that I just hate the Eagles. I'm also very confident in the Commanders. So I'll go Commanders. I'll go 31-28 in this game. I think this will be a good one. I like Commanders like Jaden Daniels. Might as well ride the wave. Like you're surfing a little bit. Keep it going into that Super Bowl in good old New Orleans. So I'm going to go Commanders 31-28 over the Eagles. Also, Gratz, any final comments as we head into championship weekend in the NFL?
The Commanders surf into a Super Bowl victory, especially if it's over the Chiefs. That would be one of the best NFL seasons in the history of the game.
It would be pretty awesome to see. Big Ripper Podcast. Appreciate you being here with us. We had a blast. Next week, hopefully, we'll have another guest on. Great conversation. Let's see you then.